Alright, in this video we're going to show you how to construct the neck of your ukulele. So that is this part here, sort of from the head there, right down to where it joins the body, especially that section on the back. Hopefully you can see that, nice and rounded and nicely shaped. But before we get to that stage, we'll need to just glue some timber together, and it'll hopefully look something like this when you're finished. Pretty rough and fairly square, but we'll shape it. You'll be given a piece of timber which has been pre-cut on an angle, and there's a range of different timbers that you can use. Hopefully you will have already done some designing and planning so that you'll have an idea of the kinds of colours or the kinds of types of timber that you'll want. You need to figure all that out before you can even start. So you'll have a piece, a short and a long piece, both with an angle cut, and they will be joined sort of like that. So that you'll have, my apologies, like that. So you'll have this part here will become the head where the tuning pegs go, this part will become the fret, and we're actually going to measure and cut these pieces, cut a few little sections off, and glue them together, which will form those little steps. Alright, the tools that you'll be using, you'll be needing when you cut, you'll be using a tenon saw in conjunction with a bench hook so that you don't have to hold the timber yourself. That'll go into the vise and you'll cut along the lines that you'll be marking using a tri-square. Now you can do the measurements with this as well, but if you really prefer a ruler, you can also use a ruler. And we'll just be gluing it all together using PVA. Okay, so they're the tools you're going to use. This is what you want the end product to look like, and now I'll show you how we're going to do it. Okay, so you're going to have your two pieces of timber, a long and a short. These have been pre-cut already. What you need to do is, using a pencil, is rule back, just use a ruler here, rule back 120mm from the cut edge, the angled edge, rule back 120 and put a little mark, oh, you might be able to see it just there, a little mark, and then using your square, your tri-square, to make sure that this line is very straight and not going off on a funny angle, mark it in. Alright, that should be approximately 30mm, just double checking, it is, it's 30. So once I chop, or cut, sorry, that section off, that will form part of the step down of the neck. I think it's the middle piece. Okay, with the longer of the two, same process. You, off this cut edge here, find the crease, I guess, and measure back 120mm, make a mark. Again, get your tri-square, and it's important when you're using this to make sure that the square is actually locked in on that edge, and then you slide it up to the line. Okay, if it's on an angle, if it's not hard up against the bottom side of the timber, it's not going to rule a square line for you. It'll be a straight line, but it might not be in the right direction. So you mark that, and we're going to measure back another 45mm from that new line that we've made. Make another mark, using your square again and making sure it's straight. Mark that. So you'll have this part which will form part of the neck, the fretboard, and then you've got two extra pieces for the step, which is going to be the part that joins to the body of the ukulele. Okay, this is the bench hook. You've probably used one before, but if you haven't, it's set up for right-handers or left-handers, depending on what your preference is. Personally, I'm a right-hander, so I would make sure that there is a space on the right-hand side for me to put the saw in. Tighten that up into the vise, that's not going to move. Then we take our piece of timber with the line, and I'm going to cut on the waste side of the line. So this is the part that we want to keep, and the waste is down the end here. So don't cut through the middle of the line, cut through or cut on the outside of that line, the waste side. It's always a good idea to line it up first and just pull backwards, because the saw cuts when you push. So if you pull, it doesn't make as big a groove, and it won't jump around as much. Once you've got a little bit of a groove happening, then you can start cutting. So pull back a couple of times more, and then we've got a nice, hopefully you can see that a nice little groove started. That'll hold the saw in place. And then it's just a case of making sure that the saw is actually straight up and down, not on an angle like that or that. And if you can keep it following that line, it should cut fairly easily. And you don't have to force it, just let the saw do the work. Okay, that didn't take very long, and if you do it evenly and smoothly, you'll end up with a nice straight line, because we are going to use that piece, even though I said it was the waste, we will still use it. So put that to the side, grab your second piece, and you've got two lines here that need to be cut as well. Okay, once you've cut your the marks that you've made, you should have 5 pieces, 2 that are more or less the same size now, even though one was longer originally, and you should have 3 varying sizes of these small offcuts. It doesn't matter if these aren't exactly the same, well, they shouldn't be the same, but it doesn't matter about the length so much, so long as it's 120 millimeters from that edge to that, and on both of them. All right, from there to there should be 120. These we can work around. The way this is all going to be glued together is using PVA glue. Remember, we're trying to get something that resembles this. So the way to set it up is you have one will be the head stock, the other piece will become the fretboard. So this long piece here with the grain side up, that is going to be all covered up with a fretboard later. That is the longer of the two, and then this little angled piece here becomes the head. It's really important that you glue that on correctly. In the past, we've had students who have glued it essentially back together into one piece. Straight piece is not going to work. We've also had people, what else have they done? Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. It's important that you put the grain side up and you have a long piece like that. Then your smaller sections here will be glued on there, there and there, and that will become, once it's shaped, the base of your neck, and this will be where the tuning pegs are. So to glue, it's very simple. We just take standard PVA, and you're just going to run a bead of glue along like that. Don't have to go crazy, but we certainly don't also want to have not enough so that it won't form a good bond. Smear that around just with your finger and just press it onto the other piece. Now you'll have some glue ooze out the side, that's okay. Then we can wipe that off later. Completely cover the top of that one, smear that glue around. Should be wearing an apron, so you can just wipe the excess glue onto your apron or a piece of paper towel if you've got one handy. Press that onto the top of that. And this will all get clamped up overnight, and we'll leave it for 24 hours so that it seals nicely. Okay, so that part is ready. Now, again, with the glue, wipe it all around. Now, it's important that you actually put this on the right side. In the past, that's what people have done. They've put it on this side, and then your head of your ukulele is pointing the wrong way. It must go on the underside. So push those two together. And the last piece is on the base here. So I might just spin that around so that I know I need to put my glue on this side. Probably put a little bit extra on here because it's a crucial part of the uke. That's plenty. And remember to have the grain side up. And I would also allow for this to slip a little bit. So rather than having it kind of meet flush here, I would have this piece sticking out a little bit further, sticking up, because you can always sand it down, but if it slips forward, you're going to have a gap in your fretboard that'll look really quite untidy. Alright, the last thing we need to do is clamp it all together, and this part can be tricky because as you clamp, especially on that angle, the glue slides against each other. So the base part here is that's not really too tricky. That part is just put a clamp on one side, squeeze it up nice and tight. Now, if you've never used one of these clamps before, they're very simple. There's a little black release button there so I can slide it out. And then this larger black trigger here, pull that, and it squeezes or compresses those jaws together. So do one on one side, one on the other, release and tighten it up nice. Now you should be able to see that as I've tightened it up, the glue is starting to ooze out here. Wipe off a little bit of that excess just so it doesn't drip everywhere. But you should see some glue oozing out. That means that the pressure has pulled it all tight. And just make sure that it hasn't slipped, which it doesn't appear to have. That's the easy part. Now this part is the part that is quite tricky, or can be. Just want to make sure that there's a little bit excess at the top here, so you should be able to run your finger and feel a bit of a lip there. What happens is sometimes when you clamp this down, it slides forward and then you end up with this dropping down, and when you put your fretboard over the top later, you're going to have quite a big gap. So those clamps tend to make it slip a little bit. It sometimes is easier just to use these little orange bulldog clips. Just squeeze and put those on like that. More the merrier. And they'll just hold it in place, applying gentle pressure until the glue is set. So that's ready to go. We just need to let it sit overnight, let the glue go off, and then the next day when we come in, or the next class, we should have something like this, which is ready to be shaped, moulded, filed, and converted into something a little bit more shapely and a bit more attractive than this, which is quite chunky and yeah, step one of the construction of your ukulele. Good luck.